This is Arundel Street in Portsmouth city centre. If you were standing in this area on the 19th of September 1822, you would have witnessed the opening of a brand new canal. Right here, 200 years ago, was the location of the Portsea Canal's western basin, where barges of up to 150 tonnes would tie up to load and unload their cargoes. Heading east towards Langstone Harbour, the Portsea Canal was part of a more ambitious scheme. When planned, the country was at war with France, and there was a danger that shipping could be attacked by taking the coastal route to London. So it was proposed to link London and Portsmouth by canal. Known as the Portsmouth and Arundel Canal, the route crossed Portsea Island and into Langstone Harbour, whereby boats would have taken the route north around Hayling Island and hence through Thorney Island, where a channel was cut from west to east. Emerging into Chichester Harbour, boats would have hit land again on the west Sussex coast at Salton's Lock near Birdham, and from here, heading east, the canal met the River Arun, where barges then set course for London via the Way and Arun and the Way navigation canals, before finally entering the River Thames at Shepperton. Now, returning to Arundel Street and the site of the Western Basin, we'll begin our journey east across Portsea Island. And here, as a commemoration to the former canal, you can see a number of large-shaped granite blocks, and it's thought that these once lined the basin here. So I'm heading out of the city centre now, and the route continues to be flanked by these huge granite blocks you can see, many of which line the former basin here, whilst some others came from the nearby dry docks in the dockyard. Now, the basin, as with the rest of the Portsea Canal, didn't last very long at all. By the time of opening in 1822 and 1823, Britain and France were at peace, removing the original need for the canal. In 1827 it had to be drained because seawater from the canal was contaminating the city's fresh water supply, and by the 1830s usage was very poor. In 1847, just 25 years after opening, the Portsea Canal was considered no longer navigable. So as I leave the city centre and follow the canal's route into Upper Arundel Street, let's see what else there is to find. Now, after leaving Arundel Street and the basin, the route turns sharply to the south along here. And with the info and maps available, it's difficult to plot precisely the canal's journey at this point. But by using what I do have, which is just a rough diagram from an information board, I know I've pinned it down to within 10, 20, 25 feet area. So here, as I look southwards, this area on the other side of this fence is pretty much the correct location. This is East Surrey Street, and our canal, once again to 20, 30 feet area, came through here from a north to south alignment, so it would come through these buildings, across here and through these buildings here, and I'll continue on the other side. Before we continue, allow me to return to the map once more. So this is the modern overhead view, and if I can now add the canal's route to it. So here we have the canal at its western end, and you can clearly see where the Arundel Street basin was located. But have a look at this, where Bridport Street now stands. Now, prior to construction, the original plans had incorporated the building of two basins at the western end of the canal, and this is where that second basin would have been had it been built. Before me sits Dale Park House, the site of our canal heading south from Arundel Basin. Here it made another course change, this time over there to the east. Now, you may be wondering why the canal doesn't feature on any detailed maps. Well, this is because it had closed by the mid-19th century, so by the time the maps of the 1880s and 1890s were printed, the ones that I use a lot, the route had already been built upon or filled in. But here, in front of me, heading east, a short stretch of the tangible route still exists. Because in 1845, the London-Brighton South Coast Railway bought a section of the abandoned canal bed and laid its tracks upon it, and that short section is still there today. Now this is the far western end of it, and if you follow the rails into the distance, they become flanked by walls, and that, apart from Milton Lock, is the only remaining intact part of the canal. This road I'm walking on is called Canal Walk. Brilliant clue there. And it's so cool because it follows the route of the former canal as I head towards Fratton. And just as we get past this wall here, there we have our former canal and its now resident railway. Unfortunately, it's not a brilliant view through this awful fence, but you can just about see maybe some brickwork over there, which is highly likely to be contemporary. Obviously the biggest clue that the canal was here is the fact that we got a big recess. The railway runs on the canal bed, obviously, which is a good 10 feet below me, and we got a bridge up here, so I think this is Somers Road, so we'll go and stand on there and have a better look. Now this is the view looking west from Somers Road Bridge, and it's unknown as to whether a bridge existed here at the time of the canal, but I've looked on a 1856 map and there is a bridge marked on there, so it's highly possible that a bridge was here at the time of the canal. Now, as this canal was considered a ship canal, it was a bit wider than your average, and looking at where the railway sits today, you can see relatively contemporary brickwork on the left wall, but more modern looking concrete on the right hand side. Looking closer at this brickwork, and it fascinates me to think that those bricks once bore witness to the passing of large barges, whilst the lower ones were more than likely submerged in water, and all this some 2 centuries ago. This is the view from the bridge on Fratton Road, today crossing the railway, but the 1856 map shows a bridge here, so again it's likely that a bridge spanned the canal at this location. We're now coming to the end of the canal's railway connection, and looking eastwards you can see another bridge. That's the one over the station, and from there it will give a clearer idea as to where the route goes next. So standing on Fratton Station Bridge gives a much clearer view of where our canal would have come from. You can see where the rail tracks are. It comes round the bend there and the wall, and our canal would have gone off in that direction. If we turn in the opposite way, looking towards the depot, and we've gone through where this wash road is today and where the trains and the maintenance shed are, off to the cutting off the right hand corner over there, would have gone off towards Goldsmith Avenue. So the building that you see there, that's the back of Fratton railway depot, and our canal would have come through there, cutting off the left hand corner, and it was swept through here on that side of the roundabout and gone down that road, which is Goldsmith Avenue, and the road itself is bang on the alignment of the canal, and that's where we're going to go now. Let's have a look at the map to give you an idea of where we are again. So here in the top left hand corner is Fratton South Western Railway train care depot. And if you look next to that, at this point on the corner, this is where I was during the last piece of footage. Now take a look at this road, starting just east of the railway depot and then heading east. That's Goldsmith Avenue, and it sits exactly upon the canal's alignment for the best part of half a mile. And then if I add the canal's route to the map, it shows just where it fits on the modern landscape. I'm heading east now along Goldsmith Avenue on our route towards Milton Lock and Langstone Harbour, and the exact alignment of the canal is where the road is today. I'm walking on what would have been the southern bank, and it's so hard to imagine that this was once a canal, with the canal there, and this was obviously all countryside at the time, but now you've got cars, a road, buildings all over the place, people everywhere. It's so hard to imagine that it was a canal. So we now get to deviate away from the road. That's Goldsmith Avenue, which we've just walked down. We've come down here. The road goes off that way, and now we move up here along the old route of the canal, which would have been probably more or less the other side of this wall, and hopefully a little bit more peace and quiet now. Oh, Tony.
Hello.
Well, thankfully it's much more peaceful now, and this dead straight footpath sits on the northern bank of the Portsea Canal. The waterway itself would have probably gone directly through the relatively new build houses over on my right. The obvious clue that this is the correct route is the straightness of this path. The other is the fact that the stretch of road on the opposite side of these houses is known as Old Canal. So I've just come slightly off the canal route. It's just over there, and I found this wall. I'm not saying it's contemporary of when the canal was opened in the 1820s, because it would have to be the best part of 200 years old, but it does look considerably older than the rest of the architecture around here, and it does seem to be in the right place. There's also another clue, and we'll show you that now. Towpath Mead. There's also something else worth noting. If we look at the road, it comes up on a hill here, it peaks here on its apex, and then it goes down again. This edge here seems to be in line with that old wall that I was looking at, so just maybe it could be a later addition, but just maybe this was the site of where a bridge used to be. So we continue to move east. This is Loxway Road, another significant clue that we're on the right route, and our canal would have been just to my right here where these houses and gardens are. Obviously there's nothing to see today, so where I'm walking now would have been pretty much where the north bank of the canal is. I'm walking up and down Waterlock Gardens, getting some very strange stares from people, and I'm searching for something. I'm searching for the pump house which used to supply seawater to the canal, and the only candidate I can think of is that building there. I wonder if I'm right. So we're almost at the end of our journey now. We're coming up towards Milton Locks. Our canal would have come through where this building is today, but in front of me is the site of the second or inner lock here at Milton. Today completely landscaped away, and there is no trace of it whatsoever. But right here in front of me was the site of that second lock. The main sea lock will be located just over there beyond that building, and that is where we're going to go next. Looking at the overhead view of Milton and the eastern end of the canal shows the sea lock clearly exiting into Langstone Harbour. The site of the disappeared inner or second Milton lock would have been here in the car park of the Thatched House pub. Let's now add the canal. So with the canal in place, the location of that second inner lock can now be seen. And it'd be interesting to know if any of that still exists buried beneath the tarmac. So looking east from within the remains of Milton Basin, this and the sea lock, which you can see just the other side of the bridge, are the only parts of the canal which still contain water. And luckily it's low tide, so that gives me a good chance to have a more in-depth look. So there you go, Milton Sea Lock, built 1822. So let's cross over. We've got the tide out, and what's interesting, so our lock gates would have been positioned here. You can still see a bit of wood there, so it would have pivoted on where that semicircular recess is and would have closed over there and would have recessed in here. And you've got the same over there, another piece of wood. You've got the iron bracket which would have held it in place so as it could have moved backwards and forwards. I wonder how old those pieces of wood are. So moving seaward out towards Langston Harbour, you can see the area there where the outer lock gate used to be situated. The semicircular receptacle where the gate would have pivoted, and once again there's a piece of wood right down the bottom and the remains of a metal bracket. On this side you've also got even more of a piece of wood. The spindle, is that what you'd call it, still sat in its receptacle. Unfortunately there's nothing of the lock gate left today. And also these huge big stone blocks here, remember we saw those right at the beginning back in Portsmouth city centre. They're almost identical, and once again they would have lined the basin back there. So right as far as the canal will allow now, right on the end of Milton Lock, and I've come just to have a look at the brickwork really. Now this is, you know, built 1822, and this brickwork, considering it's 201 years old, is in pretty decent condition. It's worn away, not so great on that side. You've got some large cracks, and I'm wondering, did it used to come out this far, because you've got a very similar protrusion there. Let's have a, no, these are rock, this is stone, so this isn't part of the original. So this is the brickwork which stops here in the original position.